Okay, we're live, and you may notice there's something a little bit different. Um, I attempted to launch this new show 2 days ago, and it completely was messed up because my microphone was not working right. So, on the advice of my brother Dwayne, I now have a really cool, spiffy um, Logitech G43 headset with a built-in microphone. So, should go a lot smoother this time. Well, hey, thanks for joining me here on this beautiful Thursday morning here in the United States of America, which is currently being run by the greatest president of all time. Aren't we so lucky to be living in America right now? Yeah. Let me check my stream real quick. I'll make sure that I went live. Looks like I'm live. I am live, yes. Okay, good, live. Okay. Now, there's a lot going on, and that's one reason why I wanted to do this show, because if I try to write a column, 5 or 6 things are going to happen by the time I start researching the column to the time I get done with it. And it's better just to touch on everything on a live stream, and I'm able to get my thoughts across to everybody. Without taking 2 to 3 days to write a column and research it and put it out at a very slow pace. I usually pick a big subject for that type of thing. But there's so many interesting things happening right now. So, welcome to my new stream. It's called Look Out, He's Dangerous with Coffee. And I am, man. Got my danger coffee right here. And the more of it I drink, the more I wake up and the more dangerous I get. Let's look at some of the, before we get to SpyGate, yes, SpyGate's come back round the bend again. Oh, look, it's SpyGate. SpyGate is back, just as I always knew it would be. And see, the thing was, it's going to let me show the comments on the screen. I didn't have that turned down. I just turned it on. But thank you for watching. I thank you for commenting. Okay, I like comments. It helps me think about what I'm going to say next. So, SpyGate is back, and we're going to be diving into that. Most of the show is probably going to be based around the latest SpyGate developments of the last week. But there's so many other interesting things that are happening that I want to comment on. And one of the big ones is the Fed. Very irritating subject, the Fed. Here we are. Donald Trump has begun the golden age. He's launched it. We're in it now. The golden age has begun. And the biggest thing, well, one of the biggest things that's holding this country back right now is the Federal Reserve, which, as I've commented many times in the past, the rhetorical trick of naming this private entity the Federal Reserve, okay, it still holds enough people captive mentally. They still tend to think that the Federal Reserve is part of the federal government, but the brutal truth is the Federal Reserve, the privately owned central bank that sets monetary policy for the United States of America, and has for over 100 years at this point, is run by a bunch of oligarchs. We used to call them robber barons. The reason I use the word oligarchs is because I want to highlight the fact, while some of the super duper wealthy families that own the Federal Reserve are American, many of the super duper wealthy families that have actual control of our Federal Reserve are not Americans. Okay, they're not. So you have key people who comprise the entity behind the Federal Reserve. They're not Americans, and yet they set monetary policy for the United States of America. And somehow this really strange situation has been around to persist for over 100 years. And people say, Brian, how come I never hear what you're claiming? That the Federal Reserve is owned by a bunch of foreign oligarchs' families. Well, that's a good question. The reason you don't hear about it is because, as with most things in Washington, D.C., a cover story, a very clever cover story was provided. For instance, just as an example, in another area, let's talk about the trillions of dollars that have been looted out of the federal U.S. Treasury for the past couple of decades. That was revealed by Elon Musk and the Doge team beginning in February of this year. Let's talk about that for a second. How did they manage to pull that off without anybody realizing they were doing it? Well, a very clever cover story was put into place to give the American people the impression someone was watching the hen house, somebody was minding the store, somebody was accounting for where all the money was going. These people are generally called congressmen, Congress critters, Congress people. Yes, some of them are women, okay? We call them congressmen, okay? Yeah, I'm aware about a third of them are women now. This idea was fostered that we elect our own representatives and they go up there to Washington, D.C., and they're handling our money for us. They're on top of things, man. We have oversight committees that are overseeing how our money is spent. Everything's good. Everything's fine. We've got oversight committees, and we've got inspector generals. Yeah, each one of these federal agencies has its own inspector general, constantly on the lookout for waste, fraud, and abuse. Waste, fraud, and abuse. And they're gonna give them what for if they find any waste, fraud, and abuse in any of these federal agencies, right? And so this cover story was created that people are carefully watching what's happening with our money up there. Everything's fine. And then Trump comes back with a plan, a man with a plan. He brings the team with him, and they know exactly what to do. And they get in under the wire. They got in under the wire into the enemy territory. They tried to lock them up, tried to keep them locked out of the Treasury system so they wouldn't be able to look at the payment system. And they tried to lock them out of the Social Security Administration. They tried to lock them out of everything. It didn't work. Trump and his team came in with a plan. They knew exactly where to go, and they did. And so we spent all of March and all of April being absolutely flabbergasted when they started rolling out how many hundreds of billions of dollars unaccounted for, no receipts. Shit, they even have to say who and what particular NGO was receiving this money. It was all going offshore, and as Elon Musk was saying, he went back 20 years and couldn't find a single spending request that was turned down. Not one. So if you want to know how they managed to get away with literally how many people, these elites up there, all these oligarchs out there that create these NGOs, spend a little seed money, a couple $1 million, and then rake in billions over as the decades roll by. If you want to know how they managed to get away with that, how they managed to step that up, well, these people know the value of a cover story. They're very well acquainted with the value of a cover story. So they gave us the cover story of a Congress with oversight committees and inspectors general who are carefully accounting for every dime of how our tax money is spent. And it's no secret that since Trump came back, 17 inspector generals were almost instantly fired. And do you think the Democrat GOP is pissed at Trump? Let me share this meme that I made earlier. Make sure I can find this. Give me a second. Let's see. People have this idea, Trump is the leader of the Republican Party, and they're on Team Trump, and they understand that they've got to work with Trump and they've got to give Trump what he wants, and the only way they're all gonna get reelected is if they've got to help Trump do what Trump wants to do. And unfortunately, that is not true. For going on 6 months now, I would submit to you that the GOP swamp is just as mad, if not even madder at Trump right now than the Democrat swamp is. Another way to say that, the GOP half of the Uniparty is even more upset at what Donald Trump has done and is doing than the Democratic wing of the Uniparty is. Yeah. And you know why that is? Because Trump spent 6 months demonstrating just how completely freaking useless these people really are. They're useless. I mean, when I was deeply trapped in the neocon media matrix, I was reading National Review Online, I was watching Fox News, I read the Weekly Standard, I read Ann Coulter's weekly column, Jonah Goldberg, all those folks. I thought the fight between Team Red and Team Blue was real. I thought it was real. And I fell for I call it the Fiscal Hawk Con Game Act, the Fiscal Hawk Act, that all of these GOP congressmen up there were fighting for us, fighting really hard to account for how our money was being spent. And they're being the fiscal hawks, and they're trying to give everybody tax cuts, and they're trying to rein in that out of control spending. And then meanwhile, the Democrats are over there, and they want to spend everything. Okay, and for years, I was trapped inside this illusion that Team GOP versus Team Dem was a real fight. There was a real fight going on. And it's not true. It's not true. Let me find that other one. There's a second meme that I made to show you two of the most famous. Now, most of these guys, they don't really identify as GOP. They both tend to say we're libertarians, So I call it the Conservatarian Fiscal Hawk Act, and both of these guys have literally built their entire careers on the Conservatarian Fiscal Hawk Act. Okay, trying to find it. I thought I had it right here in the comments. I don't see it. Give me a second. But I've been politically aware since about 19 '88, which is a long time ago. And watching these guys, uh, you know, the cast of characters changes every 10 years or so. Um, back when I first started getting interested in politics and watching what was happening, we have people like Bob Dole and No Name and some others all out there giving us this idea that they're fighting for us, man. They're trying to get that spending down, and they constantly worry about the deficit. Or as Jim Sasser used to say out of Tennessee, he called it the deficit. About how bad the yearly deficit is, and the national debt is growing, and oh, it's so terrible. And we need to do something about this. This is horrible. The deficit and the debt. What are we doing to our children? Yada yada yada. Okay, so yeah, I grew up listening to this stuff for decades, and there's a kind of wow, I really can't find it. I can't believe it. There's a programming that happens. Um, it's very subtle the way that they do it. You end up being programmed to believe that these guys they're really trying now. They're really trying to get that spending down. They're really trying to reduce the national debt, and it's painful for me to talk about this because I gotta say I bought into this. I really believed this was real, and I find this damn meme. I'm going to explain why it's so painful because the depth of the betrayal here. There's no way these guys didn't know. Was where I'm building up to. When we found out the literal sheer size of what's been going on, of the theft, the magnitude of it, there is no way these guys didn't know. There's no way they didn't know. And it's interesting they managed to avoid any real, even having to discuss it. Like nobody sits Thomas Matthey or Rand Paul. This is the two gentlemen who appear in this meme that I created. Nobody sat them down and asked them to explain. What is it that you've been up there in DC and you put on this act that you are minding the store? Wow, I think I found the area where this meme was. Okay, there it is. Finally, after looking for it for 5 minutes. Sorry about that. I just found it. Okay, let me share this one. Okay, there it is. I made this about 3 months ago. These fiscal hawks have not had to answer any questions yet. Nobody's put them on the spot yet. Ever since all this stuff came out about how many hundreds of billions of dollars were being stolen every year and sent to these NGOs with nobody tracking it, nobody knows where it ultimately ended up. There were no receipts. There was nobody even putting their names or any type of spending code on the request forms, and Treasury was just shoveling this money out the door for all of these decades, 20 years at least. Nobody has put these two guys on the spot yet. Excuse me, Senator Rand Paul, can you explain how you've been up there? How is it possible you've been up there in D.C. for all these years? He's on like year 15 or 16 of being in the Congress. And you've given the impression that you're on top of things when it comes to the nation's fiscal health, the nation's fiscal policy, and what's happening with the tax money. Senator Paul, can you explain how all of these hundreds of billions of dollars was shipped out of our treasury to points unknown to all these NGOs where they did God knows what with it, and you had no idea this was happening? Can you explain that? You see, these guys are protected. We don't have a real media in this country right now. I guarantee you, okay, the Democrat media doesn't want to touch this with Rand Paul and Thomas Massie and the conservative fiscal hawks in Congress, because this is an issue where the Democrats are also at fault, and they don't want any more attention focused on this. But the okay, I'm gonna see if I can. I'm back. I'm back. Okay, I think I'm back. I thought I killed it. Okay, yeah, I don't understand what happened there. I've lost my background, but I got a different background there. Okay. Yeah, apparently, if I hit this mouse, if I hit this mouse with my elbow, that button is gonna whip me back to the previous page. Okay. And that's what just happened. So sorry about that. Let me get that share screen back up. And I'll continue like nothing happened there. Okay. Let's pretend that didn't happen. I'm gonna have to position my mouse a little more carefully so I don't hit it accidentally. Sorry. Okay. Sorry about that. So for all these years, these conservative fiscal hawks have been sitting up there minding the store, counting for every penny. And the fake news is not going to badger them about it because this makes Democrats look bad too. And the neocon media is not interested in it because a lot of neocon media, are you sitting down? It's not just fake news that's supporting itself with a lot of our own tax money. Okay. The neocon news, a large part of the neocon news is funded by the same people that fund the fake news. Yes. They don't want, the neocon news does not want anybody examining where the USAID money actually went. They don't want anybody finding that out anymore. And all these other right-aligned NGOs out there in the defense contracting industry, in the defense industry, and Chamber of Commerce type NGOs out there, they were sucking at the government tit too. You know that, right? Okay, so fake news doesn't want this issue explored. Neocon news doesn't want this issue explored either. So nobody is pressing these two guys. Hey, dude, what the hell were you doing up there for the last decade and a half? While all this money was being looted out of our treasury, what exactly would you say your job is here? Nobody is pressing these two guys on that. They're all talking about how Trump's tariffs are a bad idea. Or how they need to, like Josh Hawley and these other Tom Cotton, what they can do to stop Tulsi Gabbard from showing how useless they are. And they gotta stop Tulsi Gabbard. Have you ever noticed this? Whenever somebody in the executive branch starts doing real stuff, real shit that needs to happen, they start doing a real investigation. They start making real policy that's going to help Americans. Have you noticed how much that pisses off our Congress? Have you noticed that? Why? Why does our Congress get so upset when somebody like Tulsi Gabbard suddenly is able to declassify stuff and start rolling it out when Congress supposedly already investigated that for years and never got anywhere? Why would it piss off Tom Cotton so much? He feels like he has to try to pass a bill to limit what Tulsi Gabbard can declassify and give to the Department of Justice. Why would he feel compelled to do that? Now, apply that to fiscal monetary policy. Almost every time I see Thomas Massey or Rand Paul in the last 6 months, it's like, here's another dumb thing Donald Trump is trying to do. We've got to stop Donald Trump. It's almost as if Congress is worthless and useless, and they don't like it being demonstrated by an actual competent president just how useless the Congress really is. They don't like it. And like I said, it's humbling for me to discuss this because I was trapped in the neocon matrix for so many years. I bought all the fiscal hawk bullshit. I bought all of it. That John Bonner and Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell and No Name were fighting for us to stop those drunken sailors spending Democrats. They would get the county, get that spending down and keep our national debt from growing so fast. It was a real fight. And it was all fake. It was all fake AF. So these guys don't like what Donald Trump has been doing. They don't like it. They hate it. They try to come up with clever ways they can, like one of the commenters said, Donna, undermine him. They try to find clever ways they can undermine him without trying to be too obvious about it. But yeah, they're trying to undermine it. So here's where I've been going with this. Of course, the Fed and Powell didn't drop the rates. The whole point of centralizing all of that power in Washington, D.C. for the last 125 years, the whole reason for that was so they could put a big cover story out there and keep the public asleep and complacent while they looted the ever-living crap out of us for over 100 years now. Our people still struggle to grasp this, that the Federal Reserve not only is not part of our federal government, that it's a private, family-owned entity. They still cannot quite accept the fact that the people who actually own the Federal Reserve, its real owners now, are mostly foreign people. And they have very, very different interests from that of Native Americans. And Trump has been preparing for what he's going to do with the Fed for some time now. He's got to show people that the oligarchs' families who've been setting U.S. monetary policy in such a way as to build an incredible amount of debt in our federal government. That these people have been using that to control our country. They use the debt to gain control. And they're ruthless. They have been absolutely ruthless about what they do to Americans with the control that our debt gives them. And Donald Trump has known this for a long time now. So I believe the first term was the setup for the second term. It was interrupted by the stolen election. But the first term was the setup for the second term. And the second term, enough of the ground has been prepared. He can begin rolling out the fact that the Fed needs to go. The Fed has got to go. Because it's a foreign-owned entity that has an America last agenda. And he is forcing them in the second term. It has now reached the point where, okay, they tried to stop him on revealing how bad the theft was out of the treasuries. Not just revealing the theft, stopping the theft, stopping it. Those hundreds of billions of dollars are not being shoveled out the door anymore at the Treasury. They tried to stop him from doing that. They failed. They tried to stop him from implementing the trade rebalance and the institution of the new tariff and trade deal. And they failed to do that. So what happened? In a mere 2.5 months of this, stopping hundreds of billions of dollars being looted out of the Treasury, going to God knows where, and the new revenue from the trade deals and the tariff deals, in 2.5 months, from April to the end of June, Donald J. Trump, our America's first president, who was launching a golden age, got our federal government to a $27 billion surplus. A monthly surplus. And surplus is where the government takes in more money than it spent that month. I guarantee you, the people that run our Fed, the Federal Reserve, and the oligarchs' families who control our monetary policy from behind the scenes, behind the cover story, are very, very upset right now because it's starting to dawn on them that Trump has a real shot at pulling this off. He has a real shot at eliminating their control via our debt. He has a shot at ending it, and they don't want that to happen. But nothing can stop what is happening. Nothing can stop what is happening. When they announce the numbers for July, I expect to see another surplus. When they announce the numbers for August, I expect to see another surplus. And Trump is talking about the trillions and trillions of dollars of new investments coming into the country. That was never supposed to happen. I mean, if you think about it, before he came back in the second term, these people probably thought all of this was impossible. You will never get your country to a point where your debt to us stops growing, much less start reducing it and eliminating it. Forget that. We own you. We will always own you. And yet, what have they watched unfold for the last 6 months? They probably can't. They're probably in shock. He's getting trillions in new investments. I mean, okay. I was going to say this point. They spent decades carefully arranging those trade imbalances. Do you know that? They did. The oligarchs control all this shit. They spent decades offshoring American industry. They're never coming back. And they had Obama tell this to everybody repeatedly. You can't stop this. It started under H.W. Bush, you know, and continued under Clinton. And then under W. Bush, they really wrapped it up. You can't stop this. Don't even try. Much less, what? Reverse it? Are you nuts? You'll never be able to reverse this. And by the time Obama really stepped it up, he's getting ready to make the handoff to the witch. Can you imagine how confident these people were that none of this was ever going to be reversed, much less fixed, but reverse all of this? How are you going to bring all those industries back? How are you going to solve all these trade imbalances? No, you're screwed. You're screwed forever and ever. Amen. You are screwed, and you are never, ever getting out from under our thumb. And then the last 6 months happened. And Donald Trump showed all of these arrogant oligarchs, pricks, just how wrong they are. And they were very wrong. It is possible to do this. In fact, Trump's known all along. If you go back and look at his interviews in the 1980s, he was talking about this. America is artificially suppressed. Remove the weights. Take the sandbags off of our feet. Get rid of these artificial barriers. And you will not believe what this country can do. He's been saying this very consistently since the 1980s. You go back and watch his interviews, and I have. Okay, he talks about all of this. The people who are doing this, offshoring all of our industries overseas, they're being bought off. They're not doing this for America. They lie to everybody. You know, this is just the price in progress. All the coal miners are just going to have to learn to code. Sorry. Trump knew all along. That was bullshit. And he could not do it in the first term. The country was not ready, you know. knowing a lot of things this country was not ready for in that first term. A lot of things it wasn't ready for. If I talk about this often, we look back from 2017 to 2020. If he tried any of this stuff, he would not have politically survived it. He had to go through the fire. He had to show everybody how far he was willing to go. He literally had to survive several assassination attempts, not just the two that went public. And he had to go through the lawfare and the special counsel, Jack Smith special counsel, and the absurd civil trials and civil judgments against him, and come back better and bigger than ever. And build up that mass popular support to the point that now he can do what needs to be done that he could not do in the first time. And one of these things includes exposing the Federal Reserve and the oligarchs' families behind the Federal Reserve that control our academia, that control our Hollywood, they control so many of our institutions in this country. They bought off everybody who runs those entities. They use their NGO systems and the think tanks and the trade think tanks, whether it's defense spending think tanks, trade think tanks, or policy setters. They own all of that, right? And they lulled everybody to sleep, playing their music. You can't stop this. This is the price of progress. And they're offshored all of our industry throughout the 80s and 90s and the early 2000s, the 2010s into the 2020s, offshoring all of our industry. But Trump always knew he could not just reverse all of this. He could do it quickly. 6 months. 6 months, half a year. 6 months. He knew he could do it. And they're watching it hard. Oh my God. He gets $1 trillion come in new semiconductors. It's up to whatever it is now. I forget how many trillions it is. $12 trillion in new industry from people who say they're coming back to America to build cars and semiconductors and other industries. He's bringing it back. He's literally doing what these oligarchs' families said was impossible. He's forcing a massive trade reset. He's introducing tariffs. Because the oligarchs, remember, the oligarchs set this system up the way they liked it. We pay tariffs up the wazoo to get into the markets of all these other nations out there. If they let us, not a lot of countries don't even let us in, but we let them come in here and they have total access to our markets for next to nothing. Do you think America First people set up that system? Our trade and tariff system that way? Well, no, those were America Last people that did that. All it took was 6 months of an America First president doing what needed to be done while all these people were screaming at him, stop what you were doing. Oh, now let me go find this other. There's another meme. I'm really good at making memes. There was another meme that I made where Rand Paul was really desperate to get Trump to stop what he's been doing. Almost every day as Trump announced some new tariff thing that he was setting up some new trade deal, Rand Paul would go out and find the newest camera and say, this is a mistake, Trump. Because trade was one of Rand Paul's main spaces, one of the things, being a fiscal hawk and going after Fauci, because for COVID, and that's a good thing. That was good, but Rand Paul's like, this is my space on trade. I'm the one that handles that. And Trump comes in here and he starts actually solving the problem. He actually starts fixing the problem. And I would submit to you, one of the reasons so many people in the GOP right now are really upset with Trump, really upset with what he's been doing, is because I'm not going to find, I'm going to give up on that. He's fixing stuff that they've claimed that they've been trying to solve it for decades. He's coming in 6 months, he's fixing it. And they're like, shit, everybody's gonna see that we didn't get it done. All of a sudden he's coming in. He doesn't even need us for anything. He doesn't need us for anything. He just comes in there and he fixes it. This makes us look bad. And that brings up another thing I'll deal with briefly before I move on to the next item on my agenda for this live stream. Trump has over 135 nominees currently sitting, waiting for votes in the Senate, waiting for their confirmation. And Stern and McConnell will not put the Congress into, Stern will not put the Senate into recess, so Trump can get recessed appointments for the next 4 months or whatever it is. Gee, why won't they do that? They won't vote on these people. They're going on vacation. Did you know that? Yeah, Congress, especially the Senate, going on another 30-day vacation. But they're going to call a quorum every couple of days to make sure they don't go into recess, which is where a handful, maybe 5 to 10 people show up in Washington. Usually it's the locals that live there. And they prevent the Senate from going into recess by holding a brief 15-minute meeting. And then they all go home. And they plan to do this for the next 30 days. So Trump can't make any recess appointments. A lot of people are confused about why the Senate, the GOP has control of the Senate, right? But they're confused. Why don't they want to help Trump? Well, I've been explaining to you for 20 minutes now. Well, one of the big reasons they don't want to help him. He's making them look bad. The last 6 months, especially, have made the GOP people in our Congress look incredibly bad. They're not Trump fans. They are not. No, they're not. Trump has very few fans in our U.S. Congress. The Senate will not give up control of the nomination process. This is the one thing where they've got Trump by the balls. And they're constantly being asked, you need to give up control of the confirmation process. They just let Trump appoint these 135 people as recess appointments. And this GOP Senate saying, screw that. We want to negotiate deals for ourselves. We're going to force Trump. You want these nominees? You do a deal with us. We have things that we want. We want things. If you want these nominees, and we want these things over here, whatever it is, might be a new highway name for this senator, Tennessee or whatever the hell. They all want deals. They all want something for doing their jobs. See? They all want something. I want this earmark for this project in my state. And if you want this nominee to pass, you have to give me what I want. You want my vote to pass your nominee. You will play ball with me, or I will vote no. So for about a week and a half now, I see it coming across my X feed. Congress, soon demand the Senate go into recess and give. If they're not going to vote on these people right now, give Trump the administration that he wants. These 135 people hanging in limbo right now. If you're not going to vote on them, just go into recess and let Trump make recess appointments. What people don't understand is that all these senators are looking for deals. And Trump is playing hardball with them. He's tired of this shit. Well, he won an overwhelming mandate. And he has an America First agenda, which most of these senators don't agree with to begin with. They do not agree with an America First agenda. They don't want an America First agenda. They're upset because they want to go back to the old fake Team Red versus Team Blue bullshit. They're upset. Trump keeps forcing them to go off script with a real America First agenda. They don't like that. So if I'm gonna vote for these nominees, if I'm a U.S. GOP senator in the U.S. Senate, and you want my vote for this America First agenda that I don't agree with, because I'm a Chamber of Commerce rich asshole. I don't care about America First. I'm one of the people that's been sitting in the Senate for 20 years and took payoff. I was bought off to offshore all of our industry overseas. I don't give a rip about America First. But you want your nominees, you will deal with me. You will give me what I want for my state so I can get reelected. And you better give it to me soon. I got you by the balls, Trump. Got you by the balls. Give me what I want. Maybe I'll vote for your America First guys. Hell no, they're not going to recess. Of course they're not going to recess. Why would they recess? They recess. Trump gets his entire slate for 4 months. And then they do the whole nomination thing again in 4 months. And they look incredibly bad anyway, no matter what happens, so they don't give a shit. If they go into recess, Trump gets his slate temporarily. But the senators, don't get their deals. They don't get their deals for their state to help their reelection. So of course they don't want to go into recess. Moving on, because this is going to be like an hour and a half. And I'm already 53 minutes in. Move on to the next one. Trump is back from another successful foreign trip. Very successful. I love the fact Trump opened a new golf course over there. It was just a couple years ago, during his first term. Trump was so bad for America. He was doing so many bad things. The PGA Tour said, we've got to get rid of Donald Trump. We don't want to be associated with Donald Trump. Screw you, Donald Trump. So, no more PGA Tour events for Trump golf resorts. We are banning Donald Trump. Yep. And I forget what year that was, 2018. I think it was 2018. I'm going off the top of my head there. They said, you're persona non grata, Donald Trump. No more PGA Tour events. They either Bedminster or the Trump throughout the DC course. His name I never remember. He's got one out in California, I think. No more PGA Tour events. Oh, Turnberry in Scotland. Yeah, Turnberry in Scotland. Very popular course. No more events for you, Trump. Okay, he goes out and helps LIV golf to get off the ground. He goes and does LIV golf. And a bunch of PGA Tour pros jumped to the new league. And so this civil war lasted about a year and a half. Maybe 2 years. The PGA Tour head honchos come out and say, now any of you guys go playing in Trump and Saudi Arabia's upstart golf league, you are banned for life. You're banned for life. You will never play another PGA Tour event ever again. And then both the leagues merged about a year, maybe a year and a half ago. PGA Tour realized the ban thing backfired. LIV Golf took off like a rocket. Very successful. And the Civil War was actually costing. There are all kinds of civil suits flying back and forth now. Finally, the PGA Tour ran up the white flag and said, let's merge. So they merged. Now you have former LIV guys who were supposedly banned for life. They're winning some PGA Tour events in the last year. And so Trump makes a triumphant return, and opens up a new golf course. And there was the UK event of the LIV golf happening during Trump's visit. I follow LIV golf. Yeah. I got back. I never watched golf before. This will sound weird, but to support Trump and the fact that LIV golf started up, there's a big fuck you to the PGA Tour for doing that to Donald Trump. I started watching LIV golf. And it's pretty fun. So the LIV Golf UK tournament was going on. Trump was there for that. And Turnberry is a great course. So he gets this big trade deal done. New trade deals, including the one with Korea. He has all these new trade deals in his pocket, and he comes back. Another highly successful foreign trip. And the press is running out of options. The fake news press is trying to find something they can use to stop his momentum and to try to maybe damage his public support. Shit, they were hoping something bad would happen. If you get turned down, Trump comes away without big trade deals. Now, the neocon news, that doesn't like Trump either. But they have to act like they do. Fox News, they try to act like they're pro-Trump now. They're pro-America first. Don't you ever forget who those people really are, though, that are behind that network. Don't forget who they are. So he comes back, hits the ground running, stronger than ever, and announces that they brought in over, I think it's $117 billion just from the tariffs now. Just from the tariffs. $117 billion in 3 months. That was since 4 months. By the end of the year, this could be well above that. The trade deals are still being done. And tariffs are still taking effect. Some of these new deals don't hit till tomorrow. And so, I said all that to say this. He's known all along what would happen if he got to do what he wanted to do, what he's been planning to do for decades, watching what these assholes were doing to our country, all the artificial constraints they placed on America to keep her down, to keep her left, while they exploited and looted and manipulated her. He knew what could happen, and he's now making it happen. Just to give you another example of artificial constraints placed on America, Trump did a very important executive order about a month and a half ago, 2 months ago. Supersonic flight for passenger jets. Now, I'm not talking fighter jets, passenger jets. We've been capable of doing that since the 80s. But the oligarchs who run everything behind the scenes did not want that technological advancement to become widespread at that time. So they used the political class they controlled to severely limit supersonic passenger flight only to the Concorde, which was not allowed to introduce any new technology or any innovation until it died. Did you know the airline industry has been using outdated engines and airframes for going on 40 years now? It's true. Some people were making a lot of bank off of that. See, you don't just make your money off the present technology. You ensure you keep making money off the present technology by making absolutely sure new technology is kept in the drawer. It's kept out of sight and you suppress it. You keep it from becoming utilized. Then you make decades and decades and decades more money off of your obsolete technology. That's how it's done. You don't just promote your current technology, you invest a shit ton of your money in the political class to ensure any new startups using advanced new technology you don't like does not get off the ground. And if somehow, by some miracle, some asshole slips through your dragnet and manages to introduce a company that is using this technology you don't want to see get out there, yet you use your government regulations to kill that company stone cold dead. And that's what they've been doing for about 40 years now with supersonic flight. They passed a bunch of new regulations. Well, and of course, they use the environment. The supersonic flight is dangerous for the environment. Sonic booms and all this shit. So we will not allow it. We will severely limit it and curtail it because and once those regulations were passed, the Concorde was held in suspended animation until it died. Anybody else with a lot of money to invest that thought about maybe doing a supersonic passenger jet startup took one look at those regulations and said, shit, we can't do this. The government will not allow us to do it. So, 2.5 months ago, about 2 months ago, Donald Trump signed an executive order taking every one of those restrictive regulations that were passed in the 1980s to limit and kill any attempt at launching new supersonic flight startups and he wiped his ass with it and he tossed it on the ash heap of history. Yeah, he did that. And that's just one example of where Trump is taking the old guard, the old oligarchs family system, where they paid off everybody to make sure things were set up exactly how they liked it. So they can maximize their exploitation, they can maximize their profit, they can maximize their manipulations and their control. Donald Trump is shit canning their system one step at a time. He's shit canning it. And there's not a whole lot they can do about it. Last thing I'm going to talk about before I get into Spygate. And this ties into what I was just talking about, the oligarchs family the oligarchs families that control everything behind the scenes. They control the entertainment industry. They control the fashion industry. They control academia. The TV, magazines, movies, books, the clothing, the fashion shows, all of it. They control all of it. And you may have noticed over the last 20, 30 years, these sick oligarchs families had an agenda. We colloquially refer to it as the woke agenda, which includes a lot of trans LGBTQ stuff, sexual gender confusion, androgyny. I'm saying that right. Like both sexes are exactly alike. There's really no sexual differences. Okay. They have an agenda for our country, for the world, really, but mostly you see a lot of it here in the United States. I think something in that coffee is reacting to my sinuses. You may notice I sound a little more nasal. I just realized I can no longer breathe through my nose. So apologies. I sound a little weird. They have an agenda. They're going to change the sexual climate of America so that it's more pleasing to them. And of course, when you introduce a new sexual climate, a new sexual environment, you got to downgrade, downplay, destroy the old one. And we all know what the old view in America of, boy meets girl, boy marries girl, boy and girl start a family. And this, I'm not sure what the word for that is, the sexual climate, I guess that's the phrase I'll use. And it's persisted for thousands of years until the woke oligarchs family showed up, or I should rather say, the satanic oligarchs family showed up. Yeah, a lot of people try to convince you these people are atheists. All right, they're not atheists. No, they're not. But it was pretty much understood what a healthy sexual climate looked like until these oligarchs families that fund everything and they fund our academia and Hollywood. They said, we're gonna change this culture. We're going to create cultural icons, cultural touchstones, icons. And we're gonna make these people incredibly popular in the culture. Cultural celebrities, the celebrity crowd. And then we're gonna use them to try to steer the culture in a certain direction. And starting about 15, 20 years ago. And under Obama, they went for broke, but a lot of foundation laying went on uh, under George H.W. Bush, and then Clinton A lot of foundation laying happened into Clinton. And then into W. Bush, the, a lot of years of foundation laying. But Obama is when they went for broke. And then the 4 years Trump was in there, it was like watching a bunch of demons stirred up by the presence of Jesus. The 4 years Trump was in office, they really wrapped it up. If they were hitting light speed under Obama, under the 4 years of the first Trump term, they hit what what Rick Moranis in Spaceball said called ludicrous speed. Okay, and they really stepped it up. And then the 4 years of Biden, you had these perverts strutting around the White House lawn, massaging fake breasts and shit like that. Yeah. So these oligarchs' families spent a lot of time using the people they control in the various U.S. institutions to initiate a cultural sexual shift, a dramatic cultural sexual shift. And they started slowly, and then the more time went by, they accelerated it. And I think Trump literally forced them to go a lot faster than they intended to with the cultural shift. So why is the left really melting down over Sydney Sweeney? Well, if you think about it, these oligarchs' families have a lot of time, money, personnel, and resources, sweat, tears, prayers to bear, invested in getting this country to a certain place sexually, on sex, gender. They have a lot invested in this at this point. And they came to believe that all of that cultural ground on sex and gender and boys and girls and sexual attraction, they really thought all that ground they had gained over the last 20, 25 years. That they could hold it. They were really convinced, even though Trump came back and won in November, and they knew he was coming back now, they were pretty sure they'd be able to hold the ground they had gained in the last 25 years on the sex thing in America. And the reason you see so many of these woke cards losing their minds over Sydney Sweeney is that she's just the latest cultural sign that not only are they not holding the ground that they gained over the last 25 years, their their gains are being rolled back at an astonishing rate. The cultural ground they thought they were going to be able to hold, they're watching themselves fall back further and further, and they're falling back faster and faster. And this is engendering a lot of panic in some of these people. They did not expect this. They thought they had the kids. I'm talking about people that are under 24, under 24 to 14, 15, who are beginning to think about sex and beginning to get to that age where they become aware of certain things. And they were like, we own those kids. We own them. We own all your schools. We own your academies and your universities. We own the entertainment that they consume, the music they listen to, the TV and movies they watch, the magazines they read. We own your kids. We're going to hold this ground. We took it, and by God, we're going to hold it. So if you're going, I don't understand. Why are they losing their minds over a blue jeans commercial featuring a hot young actress? Why are they losing their minds? It's a sign they've lost control. Not only are the American Eagles ads a sign they've lost control, can you imagine somebody under Biden daring to do that type of an advertising campaign when the cultural shift wasn't obvious yet? They were maintaining a mirage back in the Biden days. The mirage was still firmly in place, that most of the country had adopted the new sexual mores, the new sexual climate that the oligarchs' families wanted to see. But Trump came back in November. November is like 8 months ago. This ad campaign was put together maybe 2-3 months ago. You see, it's a sign to these people how fast the culture shifted away from them. All of that movement they thought they saw in the culture, that slow movement from 2000 all the way to 2024, it was an illusion. I thought they gained all this ground in the culture through their propaganda and their brainwashing and their MK Ultra bullshit. They thought they really gained all of this ground and they'd be able to hold it while they outweighted Trump and waited for him to go away. They thought they were going to, you understand that? They really thought they were going to hold it. So from 2020 to 2025, they're doing all this slow, and they accelerated a bit under Trump and Biden. But, okay, we're in a good place now. Trump came back, but we'll hold most of this. And what are they watching? Oh my God! I mean, if they gained it this slowly over the past 25 years, and then they're watching this, like, oh my God, no! It can't be! They fooled themselves with their own freaking illusion. They fooled themselves with their own cultural mirage that most Americans ever adopted any of this woke shit. They played themselves. We slowly and cleverly got enough of America to go along with our woke sexual revolution. Oh, shit! And some of these people that are thoroughly brainwashed into this woke shit, they're not coping with it very well. Slow, incremental gains we've been making. We'll be able to hold this. Oh my God! How much did we lose? We have to have a major advertising company for a major clothing retailer doing Sydney Sweeney ads, a white girl with long blonde hair and blue eyes, and a fantastic figure. They dare to do this? How can they dare to do this? And their minds are locking up because they bought it. They bought the mirage. They bought the illusion. Most American culture, I mean, is the urban areas. Yeah, there's a lot, millions of people live in the urban areas, but there are vast stretches of this country that are country. They're not urban. A lot of the work shit never penetrated there. And so they're watching the rollback happen at an amazing speed. They had athletes kneeling for the anthem. Black Lives Matter was the thing. They were winning. It's all been rolled back. Nobody kneels for the anthem anymore. Black Lives Matter is a joke. And now the whole sexual revolution, woke sexual revolution agenda is being rolled back right in front of their disbelieving eyes. And they can't believe how fast it's being rolled back. And I love it. I spent all day yesterday posting Sydney Sweeney gifts just because I know it upsets some people. But she's really cute. Yeah. Okay, let's move on to the thing I know a lot of you are watching for. I'm going to wrap this up in about 30 minutes. Let's move on to SpyGate. Okay, I always knew SpyGate would come back. I always knew SpyGate was unfinished business. And a lot of people I know are angry, they're upset that we didn't get justice with SpyGate in that first Trump term. They wanted Trump to roll that dice and try to expose all of this and try to bring these people to trial back in 2018, 2019, maybe even during the pandemic and the summer riots of 2020. Especially after the stolen election, they wanted Trump to roll that dice and say, hey, try to bring these people to justice right now while you still have control. I mean, I saw my brother's comment there. I'm talking about before Trump had to leave office in January 2021. There were a lot of people that were really mad. They were upset at Donald Trump, the pussy. Donald Trump was a pussy because he didn't get this done back in 2018, 2019. He's a pussy. Lost his nerve. Well, I would submit to people that think that if you had tried to bring people like James Comey and Hillary Clinton and John Brennan and James Clapper and all this goon squad involved in this grand conspiracy, if you tried to bring them to trial in Washington, D.C. in 2018 to 2019, justice would have been the last thing you'd have gotten. And if you can't recognize that, you haven't learned anything about Washington, D.C. I would say to you, if you think Trump could get a justice for Spygate between 2017, January 2017, January 2021, he should have rolled the dice. He should have made it happen back then. All I can say to you is, my son, you are still dwelling in the valley of illusion. You're still captured by the illusion. He could have gotten justice back then. No, he wouldn't have. And I don't care if that makes some people unhappy or upset, but he could not have gotten justice back then through that court system. No. Not in Washington, D.C., he wouldn't have. I kind of had making fun of these people, but look, I just say to them, How does it make you feel to know that Donald Trump could not have, in any timeline or universe, gotten the justice with SpyGate in Washington, D.C. back in 2020 or 2019? How does it make you feel? Okay, yeah. But you should think logically about things. Logically, logic wise, yes, he could never have gotten justice for Spygate in Washington, D.C. from 2017 to 2021. So what's different now? Well, I would submit the fact that much more evidence has come out. The culture has shifted dramatically in Trump's favor. The public opinion has shifted dramatically in Trump's favor in a way that it hadn't in that first term. There are two things that have to happen before you can enter the justice phase or phase 3. One, before you open up this Pandora's box and you unseal indictments against people like Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton and Loretta Lynch, James Comey, and all the other people involved in this, grand conspiracy goon squad, before you do that, you have to know you will politically survive doing that. You have to know that you will survive doing it. That you won't hurt yourself or hurt your party. Now, back in 2017 through 2020, Trump faced re-election. He had to face the voters again. And enough of the public wasn't awake back then. See, the Great Awakening was still ongoing back from 2017 to 2021. A whole lot of people are awake now that were not awake in 2018, 2019, 2021. Probably half the people that have woken up since that stolen election in November 2020. That's the first thing you have to have. You have to have a great awakening where you know you have enough real support. I'm not talking about fake polls. I mean real live public support. If I do this, I will survive it. You've got to know that. And Trump could not say that. 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, to the day he climbed on the chopper and left on January 20, 2021. He could not say that he had enough public support that he would be able to survive it if he opened up this can of whoop ass on the deep state. He would not have survived it. He knew he wouldn't have survived it. But now, in the second term, after everything he did over the previous 5 months, the first condition is met. He met the first condition. He will now publicly survive and politically survive, opening up the Pandora's box of revisiting SpyGate and getting justice for everything the grand conspiracy plotters did to him, and General Flynn, and Carter Page, and so many others. He will survive it now. So, first condition met. Second condition that has to be met. You can't try these grand conspiracy cases in Washington, D.C. You must seek another venue for these cases. Like, let's say, the Southern District of Florida. The Southern District of Florida, which is where Donald Trump's Mar-a-Lago home is located. Venue, okay. Thank you, bro. I'm mispronouncing the word venue. It's venue, right? Okay. One of the drawbacks of being deaf is that sometimes I do not enunciate a word correctly. So, Donald Trump knows what would happen. It doesn't matter how much evidence you have against someone like James Comey or Peter Strzok or Glenn Simpson or Christopher Steele. It doesn't matter how much evidence you have. A DC trial jury will not convict them. Will not convict them. You cannot try the grand conspiracy cases or the joint venture cases between the Hillary Clinton campaign, the Obama White House, the Obama DOJ, the Obama FBI, Fusion GPS, New Star, Georgia Tech, the State Department, the CIA. You can't try those cases in Washington, D.C. You can't. You cannot do it. That joint venture between all of these various entities must be tried in a different venue. So it's a good thing that Mar-a-Lago raid happened as a part of the grand conspiracy. Very good thing that all the plotters were involved in raiding Trump's home to try to get some of those SpyGate documents that he had declassified back from him so they could reclassify them. So he would not have them. That's also a fortunate thing that some of these documents that they seized back from Trump ended up in burn bags hidden in a stash room somewhere at FBI headquarters. And Cash Patel found them. The Mar-a-Lago raid being in the Southern District of Florida. And all these people, a raid that happened just 3 years ago, by the way. Don't even talk to me shit about a statute of limitations. Okay. Don't even start that shit. When you undertake a new act to further a grand conspiracy, you reset the clock. And I guarantee you, every one of the assholes involved in the grand conspiracy that started with, well, it had a key part of it being covering up the Clinton email server scandal, the mid-year exam investigation. Yeah, that was back in 2014, 2015, 2016. You can't you can't indict any of those people for false statements they made back in 2015, 2016. Unless unless they continued the conspiracy. And the conspiracy is ongoing. Sure, whenever they've been brought in for an official interview with federal agents, they'll have to be under oath. Hey, was General Flynn under oath when Peter Strzok and Joe Pienko were sitting in front of him in his office in the White House on January 24, 2017? No, no, he wasn't. But when you're doing an interview with federal agents who are asking you questions as part of their investigation of something, if you make a false statement to them, hell yes, that's a federal felony. It's a false statement. U.S. Statute UFC 18 101 1001. That's the charge General Flynn was hit with. Ooh, you lied to those agents. In your voluntary, friendly interview, you lied to them. But the statute of limitations on a false statement charge is 5 years. Unless you're continuing the conspiracy. You made that false statement as part of a grand conspiracy that continues to this day, or until very recently. It could be they all stopped a couple months ago. They realized they weren't going to be able to stop Donald Trump from declassifying more of this and sticking Pam and Cass and Dan and Tulsi on them. But even if they stopped a couple months ago, the statute of limitations on most of their crimes is actually 10 years, not 5 years. 10. And each new act to further the conspiracy resets the clock. Okay, Durham was still interviewing people in 2022. Matt Gaetz called Brennan and Clapper and some of these other assholes to testify to the House Weaponization Committee back in 2023, a mere 2 years ago, when they perjured themselves extensively. They don't have to be under oath. Remember, making a false statement to Congress, especially a congressional investigatory panel, is a federal felony. You do not have to be under oath. You make a false statement to a congressional panel, boom, federal felony. You're having a friendly interview with an FBI agent that dropped by your office. He's asking you about something he's investigating, and you make a false statement, boom, federal felony. You don't gotta be under oath. A lot of people do not understand this. This is why I'm belaboring the point. The Mar-a-Lago raid gives Tulsi and Pam and Cash and Dan and Trump the ability to try all of these grand conspiracy cases in the Southern District of Florida, because that's where the raid happened. And one of these big researcher accounts on X.com, McCabe's Posts on Blocks. I love that. I love that screen name. Yep. There's a longtime SpyGate researcher an internet sleuth who goes by the name McCabe's Porsche on Blocks. And he was commenting because he watches the filings that happen. Even the seal filings, they have to put some record on the court website. And there is a lot of unusual activity in the Southern District of Florida court system for the past couple of weeks. Very large amount of. Let me, you know what? Let me see if I can find that particular tweet for you. Give me a second. I gotta search for his screen name. Okay, Porsche. I'm not sure how to spell it. Found it. Okay, Larry Beach. Yeah, that's his real name. See if I can find this particular thread. Yeah, okay. Here it is. And I'm going to share my screen. Okay, that's McCabe's Porsche on Blocks. Larry Beach said this to say. And this was 23 hours ago, about one day. He said something's going down in the Southern District of Florida as a flurry of sealed search warrants, pen registers, and 18 USC 2703Ds were filed over the weekend through Tuesday. 20 in all. Not sure what it's about, but it's interesting. As I look more, there are a bunch more last week as well. Okay. Now, give me a second. 18 USC 2703. Let me do a quick search for that and see what statute that is and what it says. Okay. USC 2703 outlines the conditions under which the government can compel electronic communication service providers to disclose customer communications or records. It specifies that a warrant is required for accessing content stored for 180 days or less, while different rules apply for older communications and non-content information. So, lots more goes back at least a month. Non-disclosure orders for Google, Apple, T-Mobile, Meta, X, Reddit, and WhatsApp. Okay. Remember when a federal grand jury was spying on 70 or so people in and around the United States Congress from either very late 2017, early 2018, all the way through spring of 2022. We know that happened because had a gag order was given to all Apple and Google primarily, in fact, maybe several other content providers. A gag order. So these Apple and Google could not alert the account holder that a federal grand jury being led by a U.S. attorney or special counsel was accessing and spying on their electronic communications. And two of the members of Congress who publicly identified themselves as being targets of that federal grand jury were Adam Schiff and Eric Swalwell. Yes, this actually happened. I swear I'm not making this up. For 3 years, a whole lot of people, 70 is the number that was bandied about, 70 people were being surveilled and having their electronic comms intercepted and investigated by a federal grand jury from late 20, and we don't know when it started. It's either very late 2017 or very early 2018. And it continued for 3 years because the gag order only lasted for 12 months. So 3 times, whoever this U.S. attorney was, or whoever this special counsel was, every 12 months they had to go to the federal judge overseeing that grand jury and ask for a 1-year renewal of the gag order. And after having renewed that gag order 3 times, when it was up for its renewal for the 4th year, whoever this was decided they had enough evidence compiled and they did not request a renewal for another 12 months for a 4th year. They let the gag order expire. And the moment that gag order expired, Apple called up Schiff and Swalwell and everybody else that was being spied on and alerted them that a federal grand jury was all up in their electronic comms. And this happened in spring of 2022. And Schiff and Swalwell were not happy about it. They both ran to the news media. You Google this, you'll find it. They both ran to the news media and said, "My God, this is an outrage. This is the Trump Justice Department was spying on us." And Schiff is a member of the Gang of Eight. He's the guy, he's a key civilian that sits on oversight of the intelligence agencies. He was chair of the HPSCI, the House Select Panel Committee on Intelligence. You're supposed to be unable to sneak up on somebody like that. Yet for 3 years, somebody was spying on him. But nothing happened, so everybody forgot about this. And so here, Larry Beats, McCabe's Post on Blacks, is saying, right now for the last 2 weeks, a whole slew of the exact same kind of orders that were given out by a federal grand jury that was spying on 70 members of Congress. And now it looks like they're surveilling certain people, but it's all being run out of the Southern District of Florida. The grand jury is in Florida. It's in Florida. It's not in Washington, D.C. It's in Florida. And they're getting evidence. The grand jury is compiling evidence in the Southern District of Florida. Search warrants, pen registers, and requests for electronic comms record with a gag order to prevent the Electronic Communications Service from notifying the target of the investigation. And this, to me, this is the direct sign that the grand conspiracy cases are not going to be heard in Washington, D.C. Because all of these people open that door. All the people involved in this joint venture, this grand conspiracy. And I remember I keep having to list this. Everybody who's involved in it. The Hillary Clinton campaign, the Obama White House, the Obama Department of Justice, the Obama FBI, the Obama CIA, the Obama State Department, Fusion GPS, Perkins Coie, New Star. It's a big club. It's a big grand conspiracy. It had a lot of moving parts. They're not trying to get search warrants with these people and spy on their electronic comms in Washington, D.C. They're doing it in the Southern District of Florida. Remember how the left lost its mind? What was that judge's name, that female Latina judge that was overseeing the Jack Smith part? See, they had a D.C. judge hearing the January 6th stuff from the Jack Smith Special Counsel. That was Judge Chutkan, the liberal D.C. judge up there handling that part of it. In D.C., it was a different judge down there in the Southern District of Florida. And she gave Jack Smith a really hard time. He would not give Jack Smith everything he wanted, like Judge Chutkan would. And I remember how that judge got dragged by the fake news. Why can't this corrupt judge in Florida do things the right way? Look at Judge Chutkan. She's giving Jack Smith everything he wants. Why can't this judge in Florida do that? Why is she being so difficult? Yeah, why? Maybe because, well, she's not corrupt. See, the one thing people say to me is, it's too bad Durham didn't get anything done. Durham will never come to anything. Durham's final report, even with everything that he found and the joint venture he laid out, even with all the federal criminal charges all these people could have hit with, it's really too bad. Nothing will ever come of that. And even if it did, you'd have to try these cases in Washington, D.C. Oh, it's so sad. It's so sad. You'd have to try the case in Washington, D.C. It's so sad. And then all these assholes involved in this grand RICO conspiracy decided it would be a good idea to launch an FBI raid on Trump's home. Try to seize back those SpyGate documents that he had declassified so they could take them away from him and reclassify them and maybe put them in a burn bag and have them burnt to ashes. I'm sure it seemed like a good plan at the time. Unfortunately, somebody wasn't burning the documents. They were collecting the burn bags and sticking them in a room somewhere. This is what it looks like. And unfortunately, they opened the door to a venue change by raiding Trump's home in Mar-a-Lago. Now, I guarantee you, when these indictments start to be unsealed and these people start to be publicly named and we start to see what's in the indictments, the very first thing they're going to have their lawyers do, because, like I'm saying, the grand juries in Florida, the indictments are going to be unsealed in the Southern District of Florida. The very first thing these indicted people are going to do is they're going to file for a change of venue to try to pull everything back to Washington, D.C. I guarantee you that's what they're going to do. They're going to, yeah. Oh, James Comey is going to say, oh, you want to try me for this? Great. But no. I'm not dragging my bony 7'6" ass, my bony 6'7" ass down to West Palm Beach to the Southern District Court. No. You come up here. You come to me. I want this case tried in Washington, D.C. You know they're going to try that. But this is going to be an amazing development. And the fact that this is part of a conspiracy that unfolded over a number of years in a lot of different venues. There was shit they did in Virginia. There's shit they did in Texas. There's shit they did in Florida. And it's the shit they did in Florida that's going to hang them. Because I don't think they're going to be successful. When they try to file for a change of venue to get the case set back up to D.C., I don't think they're going to come up with much success for them. So that's the big development right now as I approach the 2-hour mark. That's the big development now. There's a shit ton of key filing activity going on at the Southern District Court that involves the exact same kind of stuff you would expect to see in a major case involving search warrants and getting electronic communications, which tells me whoever it is that's handling, we already have a special counsel or a special investigator, a U.S. attorney who may have already been assigned leading a grand jury on this. They just didn't publicly announce it yet. Remember, back when General Flynn's case was being heard, and he didn't know his Covington and Burling defense counsel was screwing him by hiding stuff from him. He didn't know that. You gotta remember, it wasn't until he fired those guys and he brought in Sidney Powell, he discovered a lot of shit that had actually been going on. But you have to remember what happened right after Flynn did that. He dumped Covington and Burling, the D.C. law firm, and he brought in Sidney Powell. It turns out that William Barr, Attorney General William Barr, just bumped the mouse with my elbow again. Thank God I didn't go back to the other page. It turns out William Barr had called in the U.S. Attorney for the Eastern District of Missouri, a gentleman whose name was Jeffrey Jensen. And in secret, without telling anybody, without making any public announcement, he sent Jeffrey Jensen to check the math of the people handling the Flynn case. That's the Mueller Special Counsel and the FBI's Crossfire Hurricane / Crossfire Razor teams. Yeah, William Barr told Jeffrey Jensen, I want you to go in there and look over all their files and see if everything's on the up and up. Make sure they're not hiding anything. And so Jeffrey Jensen goes in there. He goes into the D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office, which is where the Mueller Special Counsel was based while it was active. He goes into FBI headquarters to the 7th floor. And what does he find? He finds all that exculpatory evidence that the FBI and the Mueller Special Counsel have been hiding from both the court and from the foreign defense team. And finds the exculpatory evidence they were deliberately holding back. And he gives it under seal. He goes all the way to the courtroom, Judge Emmett Sullivan's courtroom in D.C., and he gives the exculpatory evidence that he found under seal to Sidney Powell. And when this evidence starts to be unsealed, it's so bad, the DOJ instantly files to drop the case. It wasn't until Jensen was ready to go to Sidney Powell with that first batch of sealed exculpatory evidence that William Barr had to come out and let everybody know. Oh, by the way, I have a special prosecutor, special investigator named Jeffrey Jensen. Yeah, he's been investigating for me. He came out and held that press conference when it didn't matter anymore. Jensen already had the goods. So admitting what's been going on wouldn't hurt anything. So what I'm trying to tell you is there's nothing in the statutes that says if an attorney general assigns a special prosecutor, a special counsel, or a special investigator to lead a grand jury to investigate a crime, they must make a public announcement of that. Go look. Now, certain kinds of special counsel, certain kinds of special investigators, yes, you would have to make a public announcement. But not in every case. William Barr didn't violate anything. Tap in Jeffrey Jensen and say, go in there and check this out for me. We still don't know. Oh, yeah, just another point. We still don't know who was leading that federal grand jury from early 2018 to spring of 2022 that was spying on Chip and Swallow. We don't know who that was. Somebody was appointed to lead a grand jury that was surveilling and collecting evidence against seated members of the United States Congress. This was revealed 3 years ago when the gag order lapsed. And we still don't know who that was. And it is, as my brother very perceptively points out, it hasn't leaked. Nobody's leaked the name of this person. That's how you know the operational security of this is pretty freaking airtight. We still don't know who it was. We still don't know what they found. We still don't know if there are any indictments just sitting there waiting for somebody to unseal them. We don't know. So people have this idea, well, nothing can really be happening in the Southern District of New York because if Pam Bondi had appointed any type of special counsel or special prosecutor to see the grand jury and start doing wiretaps and electronic comms interceptions and search warrants for people involved in this grand conspiracy, I would know about it. She would have had to say something publicly about that. I would know about it. So what kind of bullshit is this? A lot of people think they have a right to know. You don't. You don't have a right to know. Now, I have a right to know every single person that was investigated by a grand jury. No, you don't. Because the grand jury doesn't return an indictment against everyone it investigates. We just went through a couple of months, beginning in November, they really stepped it up. A couple of months of social media influencers screaming they have a right to know who's on the Epstein client list and that the DOJ needs to cough that Epstein client list up and drop it in the public space, and they need to do it right the heck now because the public has a right to know. You have a right to know jack shit when it comes to who's been investigated or who's on what list. You know what would happen if they dropped an Epstein client list out in the open? Let's say you got what you wanted. They found Maxwell's list and dumped it out in public. Given what you know of social media and how social media influencers monetize everything, monetize outrage, monetize social media targeting campaigns, even somebody who had only a tangential relationship with Maxwell, but their name is on a list. What do you think is going to happen to that person if their name's on any kind of a list that goes public? Well, I tell you what would happen. The internet would be viciously irresponsible with that list. Viciously irresponsible. Which is why they'll never get one. You will ever and only get sealed indictments against people where they found sufficient evidence to sustain a charge from a seated grand jury. And that's all you're ever gonna get. So be happy with that. Because grand juries investigate a lot of people. And I'm not saying everybody they investigate that they don't return an indictment against is innocent. Oh, I'm not saying that. There are some guilty people that they look at, but they can't find sufficient evidence to sustain a charge. So they have to let them go. But there are also people that are called in and they investigate and they find out, yeah, this person didn't have anything to do with this. This was a misunderstanding. Or they had only a tangential encounter with this person. The criminal. They only had a tangential association with them. But the internet being what it is, any kind of list, you think people are going to differentiate between who had a massive relationship engaging in the services with child trafficking and who attended a party or two with Maxwell? You think people are going to fucking differentiate between the two? Well, they're not. They're going to assume every single person on that list is the pedo client. You know it, I know it. So there's interesting things going down with a grand jury in the Southern District of Florida right now. Very interesting things. But there aren't going to be any leaks. See, we only know about this because they make public firings, and they're not going to tell you who's leading the grand jury, and they're not going to tell you who the grand jury is investigating. They're not going to show you what evidence the grand jury is finding. And then when the investigation is over and whoever's leading that grand jury begins presenting it with the evidence against certain targets and ask the grand jury to return a bill of indictment, they're not going to show you any of this. You will not see what's been going on until Pam Bondi gives the okay. The person leading the grand jury gives the okay. And the federal judge overseeing this process gives the okay. Then they'll unseal the indictment, and you will begin to see who the grand jury returned an indictment against based on what evidence. And they don't have to show you everything in exhaustive detail. Most indictments will only show you enough to say, yes, the grand jury found this, and this. And on the basis of that, they returned an indictment against this individual. But there's a lot of information you're never going to see. They may have looked at 170 people, but they only found charges sustained against 60 of them. You're never going to know who those other people were that weren't charged. They will never tell you. You understand? That's how our system works. It's set up that way for a reason. And I've had to spend months listening to dumbasses scream, give us the client list. Give it to us. We want that client list. I want to monetize it. I want to spend months whipping up a mob to go after every single person on that list. Give it to me. Go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself. It's amazing to me watching how many people have been roped in by a psyop where they're convinced they need to turn on Donald Trump, need to turn on his team, based on months of being programmed by many times neocon social media influencers who've infiltrated our MAGA community. They've been brainwashed to turn on Trump over demanding something they can never have. Demanding it. It's absolutely incredible. But this is where we are. Let me show you another meme I made the other day. And I'll close with this. A whole lot of people out there think that these people I'm about to show you, okay, I'm going to start over and think of the best way to say this. There are a lot of people out there. There are many very popular celebrities and personalities who came out of Neocon Media Incorporated. They very carefully crept in among us over the past 8 years. Some didn't last. Some could not maintain the illusion, like Ann Coulter. Ann Coulter flamed out by the end of the first Trump term. Okay, he was all MAGA and Trump we trust for a while until her neocon blood couldn't take it anymore, and she just had to turn on him. But the people who remain are more clever about being controlled by the CIA and the intelligence agencies and neocon media paymasters. They're more clever how they go about it. If you told me 6 months ago, you know, right after Donald Trump was inaugurated, in 6 months, a large chunk of the MAGA base is going to be wondering if Donald Trump is a pedophile and if he was involved with Epstein shenanigans. And if it's time to abandon Trump or turn on Trump because he won't release the Epstein client list. He won't release it. Even though Trump has come out at this point and told everybody why they will never get the Epstein client list. Not the least of which, not everybody on any type of list on the flight logs or whatever. Shit, he's in the flight logs himself. Okay, Trump is in the flight logs. Okay, not everybody that's on any type of list is guilty of anything. Not only has he explained that, he's explained certain fake shit was injected into the Epstein files while the bad guys had control of it under the Biden administration, the Biden Garland administration. The plotters managed to put some stuff in there that isn't real in the hopes that, the poison the well, in the hopes that when Trump came back in and he brought Pam and Cass and Dan with him, that they would grab this stuff and start using it to build cases. The fake stuff now. I'm talking about the fake stuff. They would grab that fake stuff. Ooh, this is good, and start using it to build cases. Then the deep state could spring the trap. Oh, this whole Epstein thing is fake. It's all fake. You can't build any cases now because you use this fake shit. Blow up the whole thing by tricking. See, a lot of people think, well, it's just fake stuff related to Trump. No, it's fake stuff related to a lot of people. And they were hoping the Trump team would come in there and cluelessly take this fake shit and use it to try to start to build cases against Epstein clients who weren't really Epstein clients. And that would come out in the courtroom. Shit. This case and this case and this case was based on fake evidence, Mr. Trump. So how do you know these other cases over there aren't fake also? How do you know? You were dumb enough to indict innocent people based on this fake shit. What if it's all fake shit? Trump avoided that trap because Pam and Cass and Dan, with all these fucking social media people, mounting an intense campaign starting in November to get them to release the client list Okay, despite all these people mounting social media pressure campaigns, screaming in their ears, hurry up, drop it now, give us the list. They did their due diligence and they realized there was fake shit injected into the Epstein evidence file. Yeah. So Trump tells you why they're not going to release a list. Not anybody who's on a list is guilty. And somebody poisoned the well. Somebody injected a bunch of fake shit into these files, and they're going through them and they're trying to figure out to separate what's fake from what's real. But if you told me 6 months ago, Brian, by the end of July, you're gonna have a significant chunk of the MAGA base saying Trump has betrayed us. He will not release the Epstein client list. I'm rethinking all of my support for Trump based on this. I would not have believed it. So, in one respect, I have to take my hat off to all of these social media influencers out there, like Jack Sobiek and Steve Bannon and Alex Jones. Well done. You did it. You did it. You hyped the Epstein client list for months. You built up an expectation. And all of the millions and millions of MAGA people out there who don't know any better, you built up this massive expectation in their minds that they needed that client list, that it was a sign of Trump's honesty or his integrity, that he released that list. And now that he hasn't done it, they must distrust him. Maybe even think about abandoning him. So I've been telling people for months now. A lot of these social media influencers who've infiltrated our movement, they're not who you think they are. They are not who you think they are. Their agenda is not what you think it is. They come into our movement and they make a lot of money off of it. And they build their influence and they build their prestige. But you better understand one fucking thing about these people. They have a higher loyalty, and it ain't to America. They have a higher loyalty. And every now and then they'll drop the mask and they'll show you where their higher loyalty lies. Coincidentally, these same social media influencers who spent the last, ever since Trump won the election, so let's say eight and a half months now, last 8.5 months, flogging that Epstein client list to death, demanding Trump and his team release it immediately. These same people are the same people who scream there's no plan. Or they talk all damn day long about Q-tards. How the Q movement is a LARP, an intelligence agency LARP. What a fucking joke. We're just gonna have to disagree about which one is an intelligence agency PSYOP. The Q military civilian alliance or the Epstein client list psyop. We, we'll just disagree on that for a minute. But for going on 8.5 months now, this was their play. Right before Trump and his team dropped the mob on SpyGate, these people wrapped up their Epstein client list psyop to 11 trying to head it off. They're desperate to cut Trump's public support. They're desperate to fracture his base and get it to turn on itself and start fighting itself over the Epstein client list. And in some ways, it's been a very effective psychological operation by the intelligence agency bad guys. It's been very effective. I see people out there I thought would never fall for shit like that. I'm not sure if I can trust Trump. He won't release the Epstein client list. You know, people better decide, if you haven't decided already, you better decide who you're going to trust. Are you going to trust people who came into our movement from neocon media? People with higher loyalties who are making bank off the movement, building their influence, building their prestige. I understand Trump and his people interact with these guys. But I'm also very sure Trump and his people know exactly who these social media influencers are, and they know exactly what their real agenda is, and they know all about their higher loyalty. I don't watch fake news anymore. I just let people like Jack Posobiec, Libs of TikTok, Steve Bannon, Alex Jones frame my news for me and program me instead. Well, if that's what you've been doing, are you any better off than when you were listening to the fake news? Hmm? You really any better off? I tell you who I trust more than shady as fuck people who have intelligence agency ties and came out of the neocon media conglomerate and are making bank, a lot of bank, and they're selling books. And they're building a media empire off of our movement. I tell you who I trust more than them. I trust people who actually give a fuck, who sacrifice things, who put their lives and their honor on the line to save our country. And they're not in it to make bucks to build a media brand, okay? I trust Trump and his team in a way I'll never trust a Steve Bannon or a Jack Posobiec or an Alex Jones. If you're going to constantly let social media influencers and fake mega celebrity personalities frame the news cycle for you every day, you deserve to be confused about who to trust. You deserve to be confused about what's going on. Because these people are chaos agents. That's what they are. Whether some of them will deliberately feed you a chaos, confusion narrative because that's where the clicks and views are. Telling people everything's fine and Trump's got this. There's no real money making. There's no there's no real pizzazz to that. Trump's got this. Trump knows what he's doing. Everything's fine. We get more clicks and views with outrage and hair on fire, panic. Oh my God, here's the big dumb mistake Trump is making right now. Not listening to me. That's Bannon's big statistic. He'll pretend like he's still a key Trump advisor, and Trump really should be listening to him. And every time Trump does something Bannon doesn't understand and doesn't agree with, it's always framed as this is a massive mistake on Trump's part. All I'll say in closing is this: Isaac Cappy warned us about some of these people before they threw him off of a bridge. He warned us. It doesn't matter if they show up at all the big MAGA events. It doesn't matter how many people watch their freaking podcast. It doesn't matter if 80% of the time they're all saying stuff you agree with. Doesn't matter. You better keep your eyes open. You better watch for it when they start framing things in a way to drive an agenda that reveals their higher loyalty. And their loyalty is not to Trump, and their loyalty is not to America first. If you can't frame the news for yourself, you're just going to have to be careful who you trust and who you follow. Because if the last 6 months, the last 8.5 months, have shown anybody anything, a lot of these social media influencers are taking money to read scripts to drive narratives. And when the time is right and Trump's about to do something big, they will find a clever way to get you to question Trump, question his team, question whether Trump is a crook, question whether I can't even believe we're here. People saying, hey, maybe Trump is a pedo. Why else would he not be releasing this client list? Why else would he come up with this excuse about fake stuff being injected into the files? Give us the files anyway. Why else would he not do what we want him to do? And we've actually been led to a place where a significant part of the MAGA base spends all damn day demanding something it cannot have. And it's these fucking social media influencers that created this situation. So if this the whole concept of the social media influencer would die in a fire, that would be great. Okay, thanks for watching. God bless. And I'm going to be streaming regularly from now on. I'm going to try to do streams every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I meant to do this yesterday, but of course, something came up. I know it's Thursday, but there won't be any stream tomorrow. I'm picking it up again on Monday. But for Monday, I intend to do this 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So thanks all 3,226 if you're currently watching. God bless and enjoy the rest of your day.